welcome back. It's Christine again with the Artist Pod, and today we'll be talking about how to sketch out a cat. As always, I'm using a Wacom Intuos Pro tablet and I'm drawing straight into Photoshop. Next week we'll be actually finishing out the cat, so this is just a sketching step. So, let's get arting. Alright, so to start off with, I start with the blank canvas, and I always do canvas size. It's 15 by 18 at 300 resolution. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to start a new layer. I'm going to come up here to edit, and I'm going to fill with black, hit OK. So this is my base layer. This is what I draw on top of. Then I'm going to start a new layer, and that's an important step. And I can't tell you how many times I've accidentally forgotten that and drawn on the black, which I don't want to do. So I'm going to start a new layer. And then I typically take this purple. I find it easier than taking a color that might be in an animal I'm drawing, because sometimes I can get confused with what sketch and what is the finished layer. So I'll sketch in purple so I don't get myself mixed up. I used to sketch in a really dark gray, but I found that hard to see. So the purple I can see nice and easy, and then it's just a completely different color. And I always use the hard round brush set to a size of 15. Right, so to draw a cat, as opposed to the donkey and the rabbit that we did, their eyes are already a little bit more centered. So we're going to start with drawing those eyes out. And they're just kind of circular. Let's just kind of make a circle and then add a little bit of an eyelid on top, because this is a little bit more of a cartoon style. Come some distance over here, do the same thing. I might nudge the drawing a little bit. Make it roughly the same height, but it doesn't have to be perfectly matching. And then do the same thing. Take and create, the eyelid. And then I'm going to nudge it. So I'm just taking the move tool right up here and nudging it. Okay, so now we're going to come down here for the nose, which is going to be roughly in between. Cats' noses are kind of this shape with another shape coming down, right? That's even probably a little too big. Take a little off the bottom. They're not exactly that, right? There's going to be a little bit of that nostriling here. But, if you're having trouble drawing it, if you just do kind of like a shape and then a shape, so make kind of like a T, you kind of have the idea for how to make a quick cat nose. And we're going to come down and do the cheeks, right? So you just kind of come straight down, and then you do that loop off where you have the cheek coming off. Straight down, and then do the same thing roughly at the same spot. And then loop it up, and then a chin. Looking a little crazy. I'm going to have this coming up just a little bit more. Alright, so unlike the rabbit and stuff where their eyes were right by the edge, it's not going to be true for the cat, because the cat is, their eyes are a little bit more center anyway, so their heads are going to be a bit further out, and then I'm going to have that cutting in to create kind of that jaw for the chin. And then the same thing on this side, roughly the same distance out, and then cutting in for the jaw on the chin. And then I'm going to bring this in just a little bit, because one side is further out and you can kind of tell. Now some of this depends on how the cat is looking. What angle we're looking at the cat on. See, I still feel like one is not as far out, so I'm going to push this out just a little bit more. So it's just a matter of getting kind of that perspective right. If it looks like the head is turned, you've probably done something wrong. So like I did on this side, I'm going to loop this in. We're just trying to get the edge right. That'll give it a sense of, it'll look a little more natural, even though that's not really what happens. And then we're going to come up for the head. Right, so I'm going to go ahead and just tap off for the whole circle, but there's going to be the ears, obviously. Once again, I'm going to bring this down, so I'm going to take that move tool, I'm going to bring it down. And I'm even probably going to come in here and make this a little closer. I still feel like that's not quite right. So just with those little dips by the eyes. And then the ears, pretty straightforward, but you want to come in, right? They're not right off of the head. They're in a bit into the head. So come roughly to here. And once again, pulling it down. Need to give the ears enough room. And then as you bring it down, gonna have that little bit of a twist to it. And I'm gonna take this and erase. Right, so then, you know, where you have sorry, I did something weird. Alright. Right, so you have that little bit of coming in. You're gonna have, right, the cat hair in the ear, and then sort of that side. You'll have where that comes down, so the back is gonna come up higher than the front part. You'll have just that little bit. And then the same thing, roughly in the same spots on this side. Right, so we're gonna have that ear coming up, and then rounding down with a little bulge as it connects back into the head, and then, you know, take the select tool before I do what I'm about to do and erase. And have this coming down a bit further. In fact, I think this needs to come out just a little bit. So there's just a little bit of refining just to make sure, you know, you're balancing it the same on either side. But otherwise, it's kind of at your discretion. And then, you know, the same thing, you're going to have that inside fluff for the ear. And then, you know, you can do whatever coloration you want. I'm just going to clean up this edge here. I am actually going to come in here and scoot this up. Yeah, there we go. It just looked like his face was too long, but that looks a lot better. So because it's got a cartoon, right, it has that little bit of differences than an actual cat. I'm also going to draw in some eyebrows, which, you know, are just kind of swoops here. And then, you know, once we sketch it in, we'll be adding some whiskers as well. I'm also going to go ahead. So typically, right, if I'm drawing realistically, I don't do this, but on things that are more cartoonish, I'm going to have the whites of the eyes. I'm going to come down here and go ahead and draw in the iris. Make sure that looks right. So especially for a cat, it'll be better to be nice and big. In fact, I mean, we can have the white be very little or, you know, more, so it just depends on how we want to do it. It does change the expression, so just sort of modifying it until I get kind of an expression I want. Yeah, I think that it's nice and cute. You have a little bit of white around the edges. You're going to have the iris and then the pupil. Now we did add in the eyebrows here, so usually, you know, when you're drawing cats and you add like whiskers, you would add like the eyebrows up above. So because I added in these eyebrows, I'm probably not going to do it unless I opt to remove these and draw in the two or three little pieces of hair that come up above it. That's, you know, kind of up to you. So because it's a cat, I am going to actually go ahead and push the eyes closer to the middle. It's a carnivore, so it doesn't have to be so far away. And all I really need to do is make sure that it's kind of balanced on both sides, you know, and do it until it looks right. So it's just sort of, you know, some small tweaking here or there. Just until we get it looking good. I might go a little, oops. The other thing I can do is make sure that they're balanced by doing it this way, right? Make sure they're both even to the nose. So just small tweaks at this point. Doesn't take much. Right, I'm just kind of basically using the lasso tool and then the move tool until it looks right. Yeah. And then if I needed to, I could come down here, split this in the middle, and widen the face. So we can make some of those adjustments. Oh yeah, see that? I think that actually did something good too. And then we would just need to fix this middle portion here, where the nose is connecting. Right, because this should be just one straight line down, which means this would loop. It's not a big correction here. And then just erase away the extra. Make sure the eyes are still lined up. Debating on if I should widen them out anymore. Right, carnivores are a little different than the prey. When we have the eyes off to the side, they'll be pretty close to the edge. But with cats, even dogs and some other things, they can be much closer to the middle, much more like a human face there. I think I am going to spread them out just a little bit more. We're going to go the opposite side this time. And go the other way. Doesn't have to be much, because I think it's pretty close. Yeah. It's looking pretty much like a cat. I'm just making sure that the ears look roughly the right size and make some small adjustments. So sometimes at the end when I'm getting close to feeling like something's done, I'll make a lot of little tiny corrections. And sometimes it can be relatively minute. I do a lot less in something like this where I'm drawing it in a little bit more of a cartoon style than when I'm doing something a bit more realistic, because it can take a lot of like tweaking here, shifting there, not quite right over here. So some of that will change, and as I look on both sides, right, I can see this ear comes down a little further. Things like that. As it's in place, I'll take a look and go, it's not quite exactly right. So let me fix something. Even how the head's coming down, right? Matching it a little bit more on the how that side looks. And I can bring this in still, just a little, so that I can curve this in just a little. The way we sketch will make a difference, even though he's not going to have a cleft chin. He'll have a point, but that's all right. All right, so now for coloration, I was gonna do like a solid colored cat or maybe a tuxedo cat, but I am partial to tabbies, partly because the last cat I had, his name was Spike. He was a brown tabby, and I loved him to pieces. And when he died just a few years ago, it certainly devastated me. And so I tend to draw tabbies because I remember my baby. I'm just debating on how I would do that with his eyebrows, right? So tabbies have kind of that distinctive M shape on their heads, and then the corners, they have kind of a swoop that comes off. Now, realistically, that would be down in here, right? You'd have sort of this look down here and then like another little swooping spot. But the way we've drawn it with the eyebrows, I'm going to make it a little higher. But I don't want him to look angry, which is the trick here. So, tabby coloring, I've done this on another layer in case I change my mind. So you're going to have kind of this, little section down here. Do the same on this side, right? So you have those two little spots that would really be way down here. And then you're going to have, a gap where you have, kind of this bit of black coming down that roughly starts in the same plane. It does depend on the tabby. That kind of swoops up. I'm fading it out because at least with Spike, it all kind of faded into black. So there wasn't, there was no clear stripe that goes off. It just sort of fades away. And then he also had a few like black spots that kind of come up, and then it all kind of fades into this black up on his head a bit, right? So when I'm sketching out, if I want to do colors, and especially on a situation like this, I'll do it so that it is drawn in, sort of pre-drawn in, to make sure it's there. Now we could take this up further, and pull that in or whatever, but it does kind of fade into that black. And that's where, so I'm going to make this a little bigger, because you kind of have that almost connecting in. It doesn't always connect in, and with Spike there was a slight gap. Sometimes they do connect in, because this is where the M, that sort of distinctive M look comes, right? Like you have this M shape in their heads. Making sure that looks right. So making a few adjustments, that it's a good enough like M happening here. And then the other thing that's distinctive about tabbies is they often have this, a little bit of black coming off the corner of their eye, right? And then that would be on both sides, right? That little bit coming off. And then a bit kind of coming back under where it's sort of swooping. Now, the other thing I'm going to be careful on here is tabbies also have sort of this like squared off coloration right under their eye. And so the black underneath wouldn't cut into that coloration. And then you'd have, black kind of coming underneath where it swoops. I'm going to swoop it off the edge. This also depends on the tabby. It can connect back together or not, so I'm going to have it just going off the edge of his face like it's going back together. And then a little bit of black kind of coming in the corner, right on the corner of that eye as it would come down. Trying to match that on both sides. And sometimes you get like a swoop of different coloration right through here, like a lighter brown. Very much the same that's right under the eye here, like a lighter brown. So we'll do that for now, and I can kind of make that decision. And then, you know, the nose will be pink, and oftentimes, and with Spike, that's no different. You would have, you know, he had a white chin, but there would be white on the cheeks fading into brown, right? So you'd have just this little bit of white coming down. Just making it look good. Just that little bit of white. And then, you know, his chin having some white as well. And we'll just have that continue on. Well, Spike's kind of... Spike had a... He didn't have a lot of white. He really just kind of had this little bit. But I'm going to have it going just a little off center. And we'll see how that looks as we start drawing him in. And then his ear tips were dark. So drawing out a tabby is an interesting proposition, especially when we're doing it as a cartoon. So he also had just a little bit of, it's not much, but like a little bit of a swoop of black, like right behind the other one. Yeah. And so that'll help once I start adding fur color, right? Like now I have a pattern to kind of draw to. I don't have to worry about it. So I've already kind of sorted it out. And then we'll mix up the brown and the, because he'll be a mixture of like light brown, darker brown, and then like a blackish, except the black will be gray. Oh, and white, and then his a pink nose with green eyes. So. All right, so that's how you sketch a cat. I hope that was helpful. Next week we'll actually finish out the cat. So in the floating nether next to me, I have other videos of art tutorials I have done, and I will see you all soon. Thank you so much. Take care.